Hey there Wargamers, Justin the Arm Painter here, and you guys are tuning in for part 8 of my Paint Mephiston tutorial series. I'd like to welcome all you guys back today. If this is your first time joining me for this Paint Mephiston tutorial series, this journey of crazy long painting that I've been doing, I encourage you guys to check out my YouTube playlist as well as my YouTube catalog here to get caught up on what we've done on Mephiston so far. This is part 8. There are 7 other segments where we cover everything that I've done up until now. But on that note, I encourage you guys to grab your paints, grab your airbrushes, grab your models, and get ready to paint alongside me today as we tackle some of the freehand portions on Mephiston's model. As I was saying before, if you guys are curious about how we got Mephiston in his current state, again, I'd like to recommend you guys check out my YouTube library or the playlist this guy's located in so you can get caught up on everything we've done. We started out by assembling the model, laying down some primer, doing some masking and some base coats to get the colors on his cloak and his robes. We did all of his details, and in the last video, we did the power weapon, which I think turned out really, really well. It's very, very clean, and I really like it. It's different for me because normally I'd kind of go balls to the wall and just hit the whole thing with the blue and do all kinds of cool stuff, but I really wanted to throttle back and be a little bit more subtle and kind of follow what they did in the box art here. So in that case, or in this case, I tried to transition a little bit into the blue here and then get more dense here instead of doing the full blade. And I think it actually looks really good. It gives us a nice transition on the model and keeps us with a variety of colors present instead of just having this big blue blade, which would have looked cool too. But in this case, I kind of do like the silver showing through as well as having the lightning effect kind of dissipating down the blade. Now for today's tutorial, we are going to be tackling the freehand on his robes and the freehand on his cloak. And if I'm honest with you, this scares the absolute hell out of me. I'm not sure how it's going to go. We may actually not do so well, but I do want to give this guy my all, and so we're going to try and tackle that. So we're going to start off with the black stripes here, or the black kind of line that goes down the bottom of his robes, along with the little triangle dealios and the blood drops. And for that, we're going to be using our handy dandy contrast black Templar. I think that's going to do us just fine for getting a cool freehand on here and having a subtle transition into this black, which may even have a hint of red to it, which might lend itself well to looking like it's part of the fabric. So that's my theory, at least. We'll see what actually happens in application. So as you guys might hear right now, shaking that paint. We got to make sure we get all that pigment dislodged and mixed up, and then we can get into applying some of that freehand work to his robes. So I've got our contrast black here shaken up adequately, and now it's time for the moment of truth. We're going to start coming in here and applying the freehand. Now, one of the things I will say is if you're attempting this and you're following the curvature of his robes, keep in mind that this isn't just a straight surface. There's kind of a curve to it. So as you apply your line through here, it's going to need to kind of curve and contour a little bit. If you go straight, it's going to look weird. So use this kind of as a guide and let that dictate the curve that you make with that line. So we'll see if I can actually do what I want to do here. And by starting, we're going to put a little bit of black right here on the crest of, I guess crest would be correct, of the fold in his robes. So that kind of gives me a pretty good indication of where I want the trailing edges to begin. So let's go ahead and just apply some of this black contrast and see what we get. Okay, trying to look at the reference photo just to make sure I've got the thickness where I want it. Okay, so I've got that down as a guide, so I'm going to kind of taper this down into that recess and try and be as smooth and clean as I can. Okay, now it's not quite as crisp as I want, so we'll just come back in, apply a little bit more as we come down the edge here. There we go. Alright, it's looking nice. And now this one's going to be a little bit harder to get into because we've got his cloak in the way. We're going to try and very slowly work our way down the edge of his robe. Just be patient. Curve that line. Follow the contour of the edge there. Just be smooth, don't apply this too thick. And given the nature of the contrast paint, you can come back and add some more later if you need to. See, I messed up a little bit, so I just pulled it on out and thickened that up to make it look good. And there we go. I think that looks kind of nice. I trailed off a little bit here because it was really hard to get that curvature with his robes in the way, but I am liking how it's looking so far. So now we got to come in and we got to apply the same kind of curve, or the same texture to the rest of the robes here. We want to make sure that we're following the folds in a way that looks natural. Again, we don't want to just do a straight line across the whole thing because that's going to look goofy. We're going to try and follow the curvature of each one of these folds and make sure we get this natural look when we're applying the black trim here. And this curvature is going to look a little bit different, again, because it's in a different spot and there's different folds and rolls in the robe. So we're just going to kind of place this and make it look normal as best we can. And I'm going to kind of dip this and then come back up on the other side because I've created a false fold here with the highlights to make it look like there's extra wrinkles on the robe. So we want our freehand to follow that. So we've created a little bit of a dip here instead of going straight, just a light dip. And over the edge we go. Helps us get that illusion that there is a fold there, even though there's not actually, because I just painted it to look like there was one. Alright, so we've got our black banding down here. It's not perfect, but I think it looks pretty good. It gets a little bit weird right in here above his foot, and I wasn't sure how to visualize the black banding on the bottom of his robes going into this fold, so I did the best I could. Came around the back here, looking pretty cool. So now we have to come in and apply the blood drops to the rest of the robes here, and just like in the product photo, that's what we're going to be trying to do, but because we've got some of these folds that are different than theirs in terms of painting, not sure exactly where we're going to put all of them, so we're going to try and place them equidistant and in a way that looks natural and normal. And as you guys know, if you follow me long enough, you know I'm not very good with freehand and I struggle with it, but we are going to try again today, see what we can do. So I'm going to start off by trying to put a blood drop right here on the inside of this fold of his robes. I want this to be subtle and small. Got the peak there. Drag it down. There we go. I feel like that's small enough. Looks like a blood drop. And then we're done. Freehand's done. Just kidding. We'll come in and we'll fill in the belly of the drop, so to speak. Alright, so we've got our first blood drop down. Now we're going to come over and try and put one on the other side of his robes right over here. It looks like they've got these semi-equidistant, so we're going to see what we can do to get something that looks to be similar in size and shape. Come from this side here. So it looks like this one is sitting a little bit slightly higher than this one. It's also not quite big enough, so we're going to come in and kind of enhance the belly of it, the bottom, and just bring that down just a little bit. I don't want it to be too big. I'm just going to try and bulk up the bottom of the blood drop here. Nice, I think that's looking a lot better than it was. And let's try and taper that edge. Nice. Much better. Much better. Now, we'll come over here and we're going to try and replicate this effect down the side of his robe and see what we can get. Alright, so I've gone ahead and applied these blood drops across the whole model here. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's a pain in the butt. So right here, it looks a little bit odd, but I followed kind of what they did in the photo here. They've got just little marks that indicate where the blood drops would be and how they taper into the folds. So I did that. I came around here and I attempted to have the blood drops follow the curvature of his robes, which was a little odd. And then right in here, it looks really goofy right now because those blood drops aren't fully formed, but I wanted them to look like they were kind of rolling into the recesses. So this is where we are currently. The next thing that we need to do is to come in here and apply the little triangles in between the blood drops. So just like we've got in the product photo here, we've got these little tiny little triangle things coming up. So we're going to go ahead and apply those across the robes here in between the blood drops as well. So compared to the other freehand that we did, this should be pretty straightforward. So let's start with a really easy spot, and we'll come in right here on the kind of crest of this fold, and we'll just go ahead and put a little tiny half triangle in between the two blood drops, like so. And then we'll get a little bit of that contrast black Templar and just fill up the area, and then try and feather that out so it's not just some big thick glob of paint that's on our model here, like so. And then we're going to do the same thing across the whole surface here, and try and get the little triangles in between every one of the blood drops. So we got one right here, just like so, not too bad. One right here doing the same thing. Now right here, this particular area is a little hard to target and be crisp with because of the way that it's rolling across the, or it's the curvature here and with the angle at which I'm trying to get the paintbrush in there. So it's not the easiest thing I've ever done, but we are trying to do our due diligence here and get cool effects. Now the black contrast here, whoops, is a little bit thin, so we're going to put a little dab right there, just so there's no red showing through. All right, so we've got these triangles trailing the sides of the model here, and I think it's looking pretty nice. Now the next thing that we can do here to enhance this effect a little bit is to come in with a little bit of Eshin gray, or any gray that you like, but I'm using this because it's very subtle and it's dark and it's not going to take away too much from the black here. Now I've thinned that down with a little bit of glaze medium here from Vallejo, and we're going to come in and we're going to add a little bit of a highlight to this black that we've applied to help it follow the same light source that we've got here on the model. So the little bit of glaze medium we've put in here is going to allow us to blend this a little bit. So we're going to put some like right here on this fold. It's a very easy spot to see why we're doing this. We put a little bit of that gray, just kind of feather that out a little bit. You can see a little bit exactly what we're going for. We just want that little subtle gray to follow the highlights of the model. So we'll put a little bit here on that fold, clean out our brush, and we're going to grab some of that and feather that around. We don't want it to take away too much from the black, but we do want to have a little bit of gray there so that we have that that transition, that high spot on the folds. Now in addition to adding that little bit of gray like we did here to the fold, we can add a little bit to the blood drops as well, and that's going to really help make those pop and come together. So in this case, we're going to catch the edge that's pointing up towards the light here, a little bit of a little gray taper, just like that, just a little bit. Do the same thing on this one here. Follow the edge, and again, almost like Bob Ross would say, 2 hairs and some air. We don't want a whole lot of this to just smear down. We just want to catch the edge and give a little hint of some gray, so we break up that black and we help push the light source and the contrast that we've worked so hard on this miniature. I've gone ahead and applied that Eshin gray to all the high spots on the model to add a little bit of a highlight to the robes here where the spots are relevant. It starts to shine pretty good right down here as well. Now, because we had that glaze mixed in, you could come in and keep building up these layers as you like to get that more intense. As one final attempt at making adding some contrast to the model here, we are going to come in with a little bit of Dawnstone gray for a bit of a highlight on some of these areas, just to push that contrast just a little bit more. So just like we did before, following the curvature of the robes, we're going to hit those highlighted areas with a little bit of that Dawnstone. Don't need a lot. This is going to go a long way because it's very bright compared to the dark colors on the model. So we just want a little bit. Don't need a lot. There we go. But I do want the areas at the peaks to kind of follow the same brightness pattern that we got with that red. I felt the Eshin gray was just a little bit on the emaciated side compared to that red, so coming in with a little bit of this Dawnstone gray is gonna help with that. Now, one of the things you can also do is if you feel that perhaps your highlights are too strong, you've added too much gray, you can always come back in with a little bit of that contrast black Templar and go over the areas and tidy it back up. So don't be afraid to play around with this and experiment. As long as you aren't hitting any of the red areas that you don't want gray, you can come back in with that black and tidy this up and rein in the highlights if you feel you've gone a little bit overboard. As I said before, make sure you're having fun with this. Don't stress too much. And if you learn anything from this, it's that you can do something, even if it's not the best. It's not up to your grandiose dreams, perhaps. You're never going to achieve those dreams if you don't try, right? And I hate freehand because I'm so bad at it, but you guys are sitting here watching me do it. So you should try some of your own and see if you can get some cool effects as well. But on that note, we're going to go ahead and apply this little bit of Administratum Gray to, or excuse me, Dawnstone Gray to the rest of the model here, the rest of these little blood drops and folds in his robes. And then we'll be back for the next bit of freehand, which will be on his actual cloak. Alright, so I've completed all of the Dawnstone Gray highlights, and I did come in with a little bit of that Black Simplar contrast thinned down just to tidy up a little bit so that it brought it all back together, and the areas that got unwieldy were brought back in line. So I'm really liking how that's looking so far. And now the next thing to do, which is the most difficult part, I think, is to tackle the areas on his cloak. This right here. So we're going to be trying to do something along those lines, and for that we're going to be using a couple of scale 75 colors. You could use whatever colors you like, but in this case we're going to start off with Sahara Yellow from scale 75 to block in some of those colors on his robes that mirror kind of the gold effect that we're going for here. So let's go ahead and grab our Sahara Yellow off our palette here, which I've thinned down, and start blocking in some of the lines on his robe now, or his cloak. Now these are going to be a little bit difficult because of the way the folds are here, so we're going to do the best we can and see what we can achieve. I'm going to start with one of the probably easy ones right down in here and just see what we can do. So we got our line right up to the edge here. Okay. Now we're going to kind of follow the same line that we've made all the way across the back of the robes and through the folds here. Like we did with his actual robes, just be patient here. Come back and add more paint as necessary. Don't rush this and mess up anything on the model. It's taken us a long time to get to where we are. No need to rush here and mess anything up. So now we've got the basic shape laid in here with our Sahara Yellow, which is a lot brighter than I thought it was going to be, if you're looking at that, but that's okay. So we are going to be coming in with some other colors here to enhance the depth here and enhance the highlights. So for the highlights, we're going to be coming in with some Lilith Yellow, and to enhance the shadows here, we're going to be thinning down some of our leather brown here from Model Color. So let's go ahead and get this thinned down though and start applying some highlights to the high points on our miniature. So we're going to come in with our Lilith Yellow here, and we're going to hit the high points and leave the areas that would be the shadows alone. So we're going to grab some on our brush here. I've got this thinned down very, very thin so we can build up the layers if we need to. So we're going to come down here and hit the fold that's easy to see on camera here. Apply some like Lilith Yellow, top edge of it, and taper off. So we're not going down too far or over the edge into the recess, because we want the bottom side to be where it gets dark. We're going to come over here, do the same thing on this one, catching the top side of the fold there, where the light would hit, and then tapering off on the edge. We're going to bring that over just a little bit. There we go. And we'll do the same thing going down the large areas of his robe here. And I'm going to clean my brush out, and while the paint's still wet and the brush is clean, we're just going to feather this area out. I'm going to come in over here. We're going to hit the edges of these blood drops that we've got on his corner here. They'll be easy to see. We just want to get those a little bit bright. There we go. These small ones are going to be a little bit harder, so just a little bit right in there is probably fine. Probably fine. There we go. And come in here. We're going to hit this little kind of straight line we got. Remember, we can build up the color so we can add more. Hit the edge of these little triangles. Make those pop. And then go down the side of this one as well. Just like that. And then follow this right here. So we're going to allow that to dry, and then we're going to come in with some of that brown and push the shadows. So I've mixed down that brown as almost like a glaze. It's very translucent here. You can see it's very runny on my thumb. We're going to use this to trace the edges of our yellow that we've placed here down into the folds. And this is going to be our kind of shadows that we're blocking in. And while the paint's still wet, clean out our brush and we'll feather this right up to the edge. This is going to help us build our shadows here on the miniature so that we don't just have yellow everywhere. So it's kind of going on essentially like a glaze here. It's kind of what we're doing. Tinting the shadowed areas, the recesses, building that up. Okay, so we got that down. Let's come over here while it's still wet. Just feather that edge out. There we go. We're going to do a little bit on our blood drops here. We want them to have a little bit of shadow as well. Notice I'm focusing on kind of one corner of them, so we leave the other corner as the high point or the highlight on our kind of gold looking freehand that we're doing. Like so. And then on the triangles here, we're going to do the same thing, but imagine that one side the light's catching and the other side the light is not. Bring that around here. And then feather the bottom edge there. Same thing on the middle little piece here. Try and follow the one side because we're creating essentially a little bit of depth, little three-dimensional look on the mini here. Okay. And then one more triangle here for good measure. Same thing. We're going to go down into the recess right there in between. Then, with our clean brush, just feather that out ever so gently. And you can come in and you can build up these shadows as much as you want. So for example, we'll come up here where it's kind of folding under itself here. Apply a little bit more of that brown. Drag it out. While the paint's still wet, we clean our brush and then we'll just feather that edge. You can see how that really pushes the shadow there. So I'm going to go ahead and do this to the totality of the folds and the robes here, and then we'll move on to the next step. Alright, so I've pushed the shadows as far as I want to go right now with that brown, but we are going to come in with another paint here to kind of glaze and bring it all together. So for that, we're going to be using Green Stuff Worlds in Intensity Sepia Vetus. We're going to thin down a little bit of this and glaze over the whole area here just to bring it down a notch and tie it all together. So I've gone ahead and thinned this ink down in a little cap here, around 1:1 with some water. So we're just going to come in here and put a thin glaze of this across all of the yellow areas and kind of pull it all together. Hit the blood drops with a little bit of this. These are going to be a little bit more on the tedious side because they're so small. You can see how this sepia is really tinting it down a little bit, bringing it all together. Not quite as drastic of a yellow color as it was. And that's good. Just going to very carefully try and follow this line that we have. Now for the moment of truth, we are going to be going across the rest of the surface here, and we're almost done with the freehand work that we're going to do today. Alright, so with our ink now dry, you can see where we are with a bit more of a subdued kind of slightly gold tan effect. To help bring up the edges one more time, we're going to come back in with our Lilith yellow, mixed 1-to-1 with ivory from Vallejo. This is beige, not white, so we just wanted a much lighter, kind of pale yellow. You can use whatever colors work best for you. In this case, this is what we're going to be using, and I'm going to come in and hit some of the extreme areas to give that illusion of light. So we're going to come in here, we're going to hit the edge of these blood drops, for example. The kind of edge that's going to get caught by the light the most. I'm not using a whole lot of this, just a little bit. We don't want to lose all those colors we worked so hard to get. You see kind of like an edge, just hitting that side and wrapping around the bottom there. Okay. And we'll hit this blood drop as well. A little bit more over here just for good measure. A little bit more on that bottom side just for good measure. You can really see how that starts to sell the effect that is kind of a gold look. And we're going to come in here, and on these triangles we're going to hit kind of an edge highlight going down the middle here. If I can get enough paint on my brush, that is. Very subtle is what we're going for, very subtle. There we go. So we went down the middle, we're going to go down the side. Down the side. Okay. With the brush still wet, or still, or brush clean and the paint still wet, we're going to kind of feather that out just a little bit. All right. Over here and do the same thing. Try and hit the center of this triangle piece. Ooh, not quite enough paint. Didn't give us a lot of room to work with here because I made, unfortunately, a small triangle, but we'll do the best we can with what we got. Oh, very nice. It looks very clean, very good. So come in here, hit the side of it as well. Where the light is going to be hitting. Okay. Same thing on this triangle, just enhancing the light source there. Okay, and that was a very tight area to get into, so I'm feathering that out a little bit. And I feel like I lost some of the shadow that I built, so just come back in with a little bit of that ink. Just hit that side there, blend that back out. No big deal. Same thing over here. I lost some of the color I was going for, so feather that out. And we're going to try and do a little bit of an edge highlight leading up to this spot here. We don't want to get maximum coverage here, we just want to hit kind of the edge. So we get actually kind of like that little extra yellow right here, like that last little glint of the gold's peeking through. Yeah, I like that. Looks nice. Come back over here and just enhance this a little bit, add a little bit more, build that up. And we're hitting the top edge there, so it's like an edge highlight. Bottom there, and then we'll put some in the middle here. Like that. And then we'll feather that out. Like so. Okay. So get that kind of gold look. Now you're probably wondering, why did I ignore this area right here? Which I did. It's because I was letting that ink dry. We're going to come back in and fix that a little bit. It's a little weak right now because of the stuff that I had to fix. So I'll just put a little edge highlight on it down here. I'll build that back up. And I'm not super good at non-metallic gold, but I'm really liking how that's looking. So we're going to replicate that same effect on these areas down here, and then we'll wrap up with Mephiston for today. Alright, so we've finished up the gold areas here, and I applied ink in areas to enhance the shadows as I was tidying up, and I came in and cheated just a little bit and applied some black lining here so that the details, the hand crafted iconography, as good as I can get that, air quotes, stood out a little bit more. But I think all in all, this model is looking really nice for an effect that I'm not very good with. That is freehand. There, I think I have achieved a pretty cool effect here. Hopefully you guys have been able to follow this, and hopefully it's something that you'll be able to replicate on your models. And at the end of the day, I tried something I'm not good with. I'm very proud of the results here, given my minimal experience with doing freehand, and hopefully my lack of experience and still willingness to try has inspired you guys to try these effects on some miniatures of your own. And with our freehand now complete, we are nearly finished with Mephiston. The only thing left for us to do is to tackle his base, which will be done in part 9 of the Paint Mephiston tutorial series. If you enjoyed this video, I encourage you to smash that subscribe button for the Emperor, for the Brothers of Baal. B-A-A-L. You guys should subscribe to the channel, smash that button. If you enjoyed this video, hit like, and ding that little bell so you get alerts when I put up new content. As always, hopefully this video was useful for you. If you use these techniques on your very own Mephiston model or some other work of your own, I encourage you to sound off in the comments below. Drop a link to your Instagram, or maybe even consider joining our Facebook and Discord pages, the T.A.P Garrison, where you can showcase your work with other like-minded individuals and artists like yourself and get some feedback from them. If there's anything I can do to improve these videos, anything you'd like to see me do in the future, if you have any critiques, suggestions, anything at all, I encourage you to sound off in the comments below. Let's get a conversation started, and I'm really eager to hear what you have to say. If you'd like to support the content that I'm producing here, I encourage you guys to check out deathrodesigns.com. Coupon code GETAMPED10 will save you 10%. Anything you spend over there helps support me, helps support the company that I work for during the day, and ultimately helps support the flow of content here on YouTube and Twitch, which is something I love to do. I love doing these videos, and I love interacting with you guys. If you'd like to be a super supporter, I encourage you guys to check out my Patreon page. Your contributions, however large or small, really have a direct impact on me being able to do these videos. I could not do these videos without the support of my patrons here. While I do enjoy doing these, and I do enjoy going over there on Twitch and painting and hanging out live, you guys are allowing me to take some time away from my normal day job to continue to produce content for you and pursue this hobby interest that I love. So if you'd like to join the Patreon crew, we've got a lot of tiers, both small and large and everything in between, with some cool rewards for you guys for your support as well. So I encourage you guys to check that out. But as always, we're going to go ahead and sign off today, folks. Hopefully you guys will tune in for the last segment of the Paint Mephiston tutorial series. But we're to the end of the video here, so as always, I encourage you guys to keep painting those models, keep rolling those dice, and I will catch you next time.